welcome. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for your energy and your smiles. I got here a little early and I had the best time of my life taking photos with everyone. And you made me feel like I've known you for my whole life. We've only just met. So thank you so much for your energy. I'm super excited and I'm also extremely honored to be here with you today. This is my family. Well, my name is Phuong and I'm from Vietnam. And this is my family. In the middle is my father. This year he is 65. He's a retired colonel from the Vietnamese army. I didn't know that meant profile, but thank you. He was the strictest person in our family, and after 5 years with Nuskin, he's now the strictest person in our family, but at the same time, he's the most humorous person in my. I didn't know they could coexist. Yes, that's thanks to Nuskin. This is my mother. This year she is 63 years old. Thank you very much. The person that I told I won't be here right now. I would be living a very different life. Probably doing something unproductive with my life at 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Probably waiting for the weekend drinks. Because 5 years ago, she was the person who brought me to the Nuskin business opportunity. And so my friend, my teacher, my mentor, my upline, is actually here today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mom. Thank you very much. And that's me. I'm 32 years old this year. And I'm free to live my life the way I want to. And I think that says a lot about the kind of value that Nuskin brings to us. This is us on our family vacation just last month after the Lunar New Year. For the past 5 years, we have never planned a family vacation because every single year we would go abroad 4 times with the company. And that's more than enough for us, so we didn't really want to travel more. But my father has always wanted to visit China. And we never had the time, so this year we said, hey, let's go to China. And so we chose a prestigious tour company in Vietnam, paid them good money, so they would put us up in a nice hotel. Not as nice as the hotel that Nuskin puts us in, acceptable. We paid really good money, so they would give us proper food. Still a little oily. We survived. So, after the 6 days on tour, we were with only about 5 or 6 other families because it was a very selected tour because of the high cost. And they were all big names, big faces, big money in the medical industry, in the tourism industries in Vietnam, etc., etc. At the end of the tour, of the 6-day, 5-night tour, we realized that our family was the only complete family. All the other families were a little incomplete in some sense. And when I say incomplete, I don't just mean divorces, right? Because that doesn't really define your personal happiness. But they were incomplete in the sense that the family members couldn't really communicate with each other. They weren't patient with each other. The teen daughters, every single day spending $3,000 US, $5,000 US buying branded handbags. Because they had big money, right? But they couldn't speak to their moms. But they didn't have a real loving relationship, right? The teen sons were all very shy and socially awkward. For some reason, I don't know why, there's a pattern there. And the wives of the husband, just at the end of the day when we sat down and had dinner, I felt like our family was the only family that was whole. Yeah. And that's thanks to the 5 years of journey that we had with Nuskin so far. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm mentioning this, actually, both my mom and I won't be here today, right now, if it weren't for an event that took place back in 2012, when my mom, after 6 years of shunning every invitation to join a network marketing company, because of the bad name that the industry had in Vietnam back then, after 6 years of shunning it, she finally decided to join our company's regional convention right here in Singapore in 2012. And there she saw team leads after team leads, MTCs after MTCs, right? Families after families, even generations and after generations of the same family on the recognition stage. And she said, well, if this business, I don't know what it is, but if it's being passed by parents down to their children, it cannot be anything bad. And whatever the team leads and the MDC said on stage that day made her go back and decide to join Nuskin. So I've been thinking back, I think all of us wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the team lead and the MDCs of Nuskin Singapore, 16 years ago, 20 years ago, right? If they didn't take the first step and lay down the groundwork and overcame all the big challenges, all the legal challenges, and didn't set up and build all the systems and trainings for us, I guess we'll probably not have this meeting with each other today. So I'd like to borrow your hands to thank the team leads and the MDCs and our valued business partner Nuskin. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. When the company asked me to come over and share with the group executives of Nuskin Singapore, I was worried. I wasn't scared. Not that we don't get scared. I think as leaders, we all get scared every now and then, but we keep going forward anyway, because that's true courage, right? To go ahead even when we don't have all the answers. So I wasn't scared, I was very worried, because I thought, well, this is Singapore. This is the origin of it all. This is the top market in the Southeast Asia region. And I'm speaking to group executives, and by definition, they are the top leaders of the Nuskin business, not just in Malaysia, but worldwide. Because that's who we are, right? So I'm here very honored sharing the same space with the top leaders of Nuskin worldwide. And so I kept thinking, what can I say to add value to their lives and to their business? And that question kept me up. Kept me up several nights. So when I got to KL, some of the sidelines who already met me said, hey, you slimmed down. I was very happy. So the question kept me up several nights, and at the end of the day, I decided that for this session, for about 30 minutes I have you today, I would only share the fundamental truth to life.
Wow.
Because top leaders deserve nothing but the truth. Is that fair? Does it sound fair?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So these are the deep awareness that we have about our place and our purpose in life. And these are the truths and the awareness that has kept myself, my mother and I, our family and our team very committed to the Nuskin vision for the past 5 years. I mean, we received many different distractions and offers all the time, every single day. But these truths have kept us anchored closely to the Nuskin vision and mission and to our goals in the business. So I will secretly disclose them with you today. Some of you, thank you. You are very generous with your reactions. Some of you are probably thinking, how can this person share about fundamental truths in life when she's only 32? I can only say that I was very fortunate to have lived and experienced some pretty unique circumstances and environments. So you've heard I graduated from the University of Oxford. That's on my graduation day. My mom looked proud, I looked lost. That's the truth. I was very worried. I didn't know where my life was going. I knew I didn't like the corporate life, but I knew I would have to go into corporate because after 7 years of very expensive education, privately paid for by my parents, I had to earn something to support myself so I don't take more money from my parents. So I wasn't very happy about the future that was awaiting me. But during my 3 years at Oxford, I rubbed shoulders with some of the very smart people. My economics professor drove a red 2-door convertible BMW sport car. That's a long name for a car. He's beside his job as an economics professor, he also worked as a consultant, right, to the private sector during his spare time. So he had a good life. But after 3 years observing him, I realized that his life was full of calculations in terms of numbers. He was an economist. Lots of calculations, lots of numbers. It was full of stress, and similar to how we've heard from our sales leaders, full of rushed pleasures. So whatever joy or pleasure he had in life, they were very rushed because, in the next moment he was back at it again. Very rigorous working cycle. So that's what I felt. That's the first lesson I realized from my years at Oxford. And then I graduated and worked at one of the leading investment banks in London. I wasn't in the front office because I didn't like numbers, I didn't like finance. So I was in the middle office, supporting all the bankers that we've seen on movies and we read about in news articles. I rubbed shoulders with the bankers for 3 years. And somehow I realized that their lives was very much similar to the life of my economics professor. It was also full of calculations. And this time it's not just numbers. It's a lot of calculations in general, human aspects, right? It was also full of stress. And whatever pleasures or joys they had, they were also rushed and short-lived. So after 3 years, I knew very well I didn't want that life. So I quit. I didn't know what I would do next, but I quit. Because I knew if I stayed on, 40 years would go by in the blink of an eye. And I would have lived my life not in the way that I wanted. So I quit. I came back to Vietnam and I joined a state-owned company that runs all the commercial spaces in our city airport in Ho Chi Minh City. You could tell that's where the big money is. State-owned company running commercial space in a city airport. So I rubbed shoulders with high-flying government officials. Because of my degree, because of my English, I was very fortunate. 80 years into my first job, here I was traveling with the board director, having a great time, traveling through the biggest 5 cities in the States, accompanying them on a business trip. And so I could have been in their position if I wanted to. If I had wanted to, I could have become like them, and it would be a very comfortable life. But after a year working in that company, somehow a very similar pattern started to emerge. And I realized that the life of these bosses of mine, these government officials, people with big names and big authorities in life, were also full of calculations, also full of stress, and whatever pleasures they had were very short-lived, very rushed. Right? So after a year, I quit again. I changed my mind a lot. And so throughout these 3 experiences, I realized one thing. I realized the first truth about the world that we are living in, about this modern society that we're all living in. Actually, I normally have a quiz here, but I forgot and I already have the answer up. Anyway, normally I would have a quiz and say, the world that we live in, the modern society that we live in, there's a shape to it. So which shape do you think it takes? But here it is. It is this shape. And I've realized, right, through all the things that I read, through all the people that I meet, and all the stories that I hear, I realized that most of our life, is actually controlled and kind of impacted and directed by about the top 1 or 2% of the richest and the most powerful people in this world. I mean, just look at the International Davos Forum. Every single year, 200 of the world elite get together in the closed-door rooms and talk about the future of the world. We never know what they talk about. So that's the fact of the matter. And obviously, I'm not up there. When I first realized the shape, the first question I asked was, where am I in this social structure? Definitely not up there. So I looked down a little, and so a little bit further down below the world elites are perhaps, for lack of a better name, the middle class. Oh, I thought 3 minutes. The middle class, okay? And was my family there? Right? And a little below them, obviously, are the working class, lower class. So when I looked at this social structure and I started to think about my family and our place in society, initially I thought we were quite well-to-do. We had property for rent. My parents earned enough money to send me to the UK for 10 years. That wasn't cheap at all. If you ask my mom, she would happily tell you the numbers. She's still trying for me to recover. Never ask for a penny back. So, even when I come back to Vietnam, and even if I just get a very mediocre job, and I'm probably paid $3,000 a month, whatever, I'll be able to live a very comfortable life for the rest of my life, not having really to worry about money. So, where was I on this social structure? The more I look at the world, the more I live in the world, I realize that we weren't that well-to-do. Actually, we were just hovering somewhere in this region. And I mean, the middle class in general, this area in general, to me, is a very dangerous and compromising position. It's very hard, if we're somewhere around this region, it's very hard for us to move upward. Because most of the time, we will be very comfortable. And if we're in that region, it's also very easy for us to sort of fall downward. Because we're also very comfortable. And I realized through the Nu Skin business, because we have the fortune to work with many people who come from the less privileged backgrounds, right? People from down here, we have our downlines from this region down here, and we realize they are the most driven, they are the most hungry, and they are the most thirsty for success. And that's when I realized the true leverage of the Nu Skin business opportunity. Because imagine this, you have the social structure. I do apologize. Okay. We have the social structure, and the Nu Skin products are actually designed for people of the upper classes. But somehow, because it is an equal opportunity, because the door is open to everyone, the people down here get their hand on the information and the product and the services from Nu Skin, they are allowed to provide that information and that product to the middle class and the upper class, right? And if whatever they provide actually generate value, true value, and that requires hard work, right, and a lot of integrity. But if they could really provide value in return, the world elites should give us
Money.
money. Yes, it's a transaction.
Yes.
And this is a fair transaction. Are we begging for anything?
No.
We're not. Are we asking for anything? No, we're doing a fair transaction on our own feet. And this is the true leverage that I realized from Nu Skin, and is a truly humane, a truly humane philosophy about the business that I've seen from the first day, and I stay true until today. And I'm very proud to be in the same space with the people who I believe will keep it that way into the future of Nu Skin. So if someone tells me that, hey, Nu Skin products, amazing, a little expensive, I would tell them, thank God it's expensive. Because otherwise we would have no leverage to have social mobility for ourselves. Otherwise we have no leverage to move upward. If we were to do business with a mediocre average product, we'd just be doing business with each other. Around here, we never move upward. So I hope this perspective, hopefully this viewpoint, hopefully gives us a new take on the positioning, the wonderful positioning of the Nu Skin product. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, first truth realized. I then, after I quit the state-owned company, I decided to pursue my passion. And because I really like taking photographs and I enjoy really creative writing, I joined a contemporary art organization. And, being artistic, it was non-profit. So it's very obvious I'm the only person that doesn't look like an artist. Me, looking like a mob gangster. So I joined that organization. I worked as their project manager. It was the closest to my dream job. I had such a good time. I was writing press release for art exhibitions. I was taking photographs as documentation for all the glamorous events. All the big names come because they are the people who put money into art. Nobody else has money to put into art. So the big names in banking and finance and politics came. I had a great time. But after 6 months, I had to quit because they were paying me $300 US a month. And because they were non-profit, I don't blame them. But it wasn't even enough to cover the salary of our family driver, who was taking me to work 3 times a week. Not enough to cover the gasoline either. So I realized I'm a little grown up now, and I can't just pursue my passion. I have to provide for myself financially. I have to take some responsibility, earn money for myself, so I could live the way I want, right? I just can't pursue my passion while still using my parents' money for nice meals. So after 6 months, I had to quit. I also tried something else. I also tried becoming a freelance interpreter. Thankfully, because of my 10 years in the UK, I had pretty good English. So if anyone compliment my English, it's all thanks to her. Thank you. So I tried being a freelance interpreter, and I had a really good time because being an interpreter, you meet new people every day, and you learn new things every day. It also pays very good. I could be paid somewhere around 200 US dollars to 400 US dollars for a half day work. So from like 9 to 12, I could be paid around that region. So if every single day I would take up 3 interpretation jobs, I would be paid very well. And I would live very comfortably, very, very comfortably. And when I was doing interpretation work, I also rubbed shoulders with a lot of big names, big powers, because we were doing interpretation for important conferences. And I sort of felt what it was like to feel important. You know? The big names come to you and they compliment you on your English skills, nothing else unfortunately, English skills. They ask for your name card, they sort of invite you to work for them, invite you to tutor them in English with a British accent. Emphasized, because I sent my children to English school. So I had a good time, but at the end of it, the one reason why I never chose to pursue a full career with it, even though I have many interpretation colleagues who after years and years, of 10 years, 15 years, pursuing interpretation full-time, they lived very comfortably. Big house, big car, all the jazz, right? Similar to a corporate high officials. But I never chose to pursue it full-time because I was painfully aware of the 3 limits that we all face in life. Regardless, whatever job we do, regardless of whatever industry we're in, we're going to be facing 3 limits in life. And if we don't find a way to break through these 3 limits, it doesn't really matter what we do. We never create any breakthrough in life. The first limit was time. I'm sure this is quite familiar, right? Time. We're only ever going to have 24 hours a day. So if we do something that requires us to exchange our specialist skills, to convert time into money, the amount of money that we will make in our life will always be finite, because the amount of time that we could have working in life is finite. So whatever we can do to overcome this limit, we have to find a way. I didn't want to spend the whole life working. And the second limit was the space limit. Whenever we do a business that requires us to have a physical space, that's the 4 walls, the ceiling. 4-wall ceiling. It will always impose on us 2 limits on our business potential. It can only serve the people and the customers somewhere around the 3 to 4 kilometers radius around that geographical location. I mean, if you're a store and you sell a product, then maybe you can ship them to remote areas. If you're in the service industry, you have a cafe, you have a restaurant, you will always be limited to a certain number of potential customers. And secondly, with a physical space, at any point in time, you can only serve a maximum number of people. You could only ever fit a certain number of people into a space. Right? So those are huge limits. And finally, the biggest limit that very few people discussed was the human limit. I don't know if anyone in this room has ever felt like me, but throughout my years in the UK, I was very sad and lost and depressed, also for one reason. Because even though I had the chance to attend a prestigious university and I worked in a prestigious bank and everybody looked at me as if I was living a dream life, deep down inside, I was actually very insecure. I was actually very scared because I knew that I was incredibly ordinary. Because people would look at me and they would expect me to be smart and clever and genius and somehow succeed in everything that I do. But I'm not. And I'm constantly scared because even when I moved back to Vietnam, my father, being quite conservative, told me, hey, you've had a pretty golden track record. Whatever you choose to do from now on, you must be very careful. Don't stain it. Huge pressure from a military man. Luckily, my mom was there to save me. I had this fear deep down inside because I think, traditionally, society and schools and unknowingly and maybe unintentionally, even our parents expects us to become the best. We go to school and we're expected to be at the top, top 3, and our parents would be very sad if we're in like the top 20 in a 30 people class. So that's huge pressure. It's the same with our university degree. It's the same with whatever corporate job or whatever organizations that we join. Whether it's non-profit or profit, you always have to strive to become the best. But in fact, human beings individually, we all have strengths, but we also have our weakness. And if we keep fighting each other for those limited seats upstairs, we'll keep trampling on each other. We'll keep competing against each other. I'm sure none of us will go very, very far. Maybe the fittest, the top 1%, the top 2% will go very far. The rest of us probably be left behind. We'll be forever stuck in that vicious cycle. And so, how do we overcome these limits? What are the solutions? And surprisingly, but also non-surprisingly, the solutions are in the company's business models. And I found in Nu Skin the product, the first P, that resolves the time limit. When I first joined the business, my MTC upline, Mr. Dean Nguyen, who's the first Vietnamese person to have joined the Nu Skin business worldwide, sold to me an idea that got stuck in my mind. I still keep it with me today, and I still tell it to everyone today. We were talking about the R squared back then, because it was 2012, and we just had the LTO for R squared in Vietnam. He said, imagine the R squared. I don't really care what you do in life. All of us are spending 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day working, so we can provide for ourselves and our family. And that's a universal truth. It is also, I shouldn't say universal, in case corporate. It's also a very proven truth that R squared can help you stay healthy, can help you stay energized, can help you stay happy throughout those long working hours. So imagine this product solves a universal need. Imagine you have families and consumers using R squared, but not just where you live, not just in Singapore. Imagine you have families and consumers using R squared in Europe, using R squared in the Americas, using R squared in our Asia and Pacific regions. So in the morning, the consumers of Singapore wake up, take R squared, go to work, get back home, take R squared, go to bed. As the consumers of Singapore go to bed, the consumers in Europe wakes up, take R squared, go to work, go home, take R squared, go to bed. As the consumers in Europe go to bed, the consumers in the Americas wake up, take R squared, go to work, go home, take R squared, go to bed. As the consumers in the Americas go to bed, guess what happens? The consumers in Singapore, in Japan, Korea, in Asia, in the Pacific regions, wake up. And they take R squared. And that cycle continues, obviously, because we all need to go through our 12-hour working days. So, if you build consumers and families using the Nu Skin products, the ageLOC products, globally, which the company is designed to allow us to do so, and they are asking us every single day to do so, to go global. So if you do that, you now have a 24/7 market that never sleeps. Yes. Even the financial market sleeps. The financial market goes on public holiday. The consumption market doesn't go on public holidays. Instead, on public holidays, the consumption market goes crazy. I mean, people go spending, and people buy gifts on public holidays. So, that's the time limit solved. You can now, in the literature of self-help and success theories, everybody talks about making money when you sleep. But nobody actually has a proven business model to do so. And right here, with the Nu Skin product, and the way the company has built its platform, is feasible. It is so logical. I don't need to be. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm glad you feel the power. Yes. Now, the space limit is obviously resolved by our platform, which I will probably share more tonight in the BOM session. So not to waste so much of your time, but the company's platform solves for us the most important limit in that they don't require any physical asset from us. And that's a liberating concept. Because a lot of the time, young people, me personally, when I first got out of school, I never thought I would ever become a business person. I felt like I just wasn't made for it. I don't know if you have the same word in Singaporean, I do apologize. You have the same word in English or in Chinese that says you have to have the blood for it. In Vietnamese, we say, If you want to do business, you have to have the blood for business. You have to have it in you. You have to be risk-loving. You have to be bold, ready to fail, ready to, scar and bleed in exchange for money. I wasn't made like that. And I thought I'd never do business because there's just so much risk involved and there's so much capital required involved. But here, the company's platform allows us to start up almost at zero cost. And because we have no physical assets, we don't need an office. The company provides the offices and the chairs and tables and the projectors. And because we don't have to invest anything, it's an equal playground. Anyone could start up on this platform. It's so equal that you probably know the son of our co-founder goes through the same process as we do. Blood, sweat, and tears. LOI qualifications and rejections. Right? 16 G1 leaders before he becomes a team lead. So equal. And the concept of equality in today's world is something that I deeply love because most of the playgrounds out there are designed for the few privileged. Where, the success factors are controlled by factors that we cannot change. Out there, the success factors are controlled by whether we're born in the right family, whether our parents have the right connections, do we have the right bachelor degree, do I have the right look, do I look like a K-pop star so I could have millions of fans and advertising money. Out there, the success factors are scary. But in Nu Skin, you see the success factors are everything that's in our hands. That the company would reward anyone who produces results that are proven to be legal and ethical and sustainable. The company will reward us all. So that's the amazing thing about the platform. We obviously break through the space limit when we go global with the company. Finally, the human limit is resolved by the company's program, our compensation plan, our revenue sharing plan. We're all core leaders. I won't go into the details. I just like to say, every time I look at the company's compensation plan, I feel that for the first time ever in human history, we are paid to be nice to each other and to help each other succeed. And that's the best thing we can ever say about money. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, here, we don't have to become the best by trampling on other people's. Here, we strive to become our best self. And we will become even better when we help others do that. We empower them, lift them up, so that they find the best self. And so, at the end of the day, I think life comes down to these two words. Money and power. And I think all pursuits in life, all pursuits in the modern society revolves around these two words. I do apologize, I'm sounding too old for my age. It revolves around money and power. But when I looked at the game around money and power, and with the traditional rules, I didn't like it at all. And for the longest time ever, I kept looking for a different game, a different set of rules that will allow us to achieve these in the best humane way possible. Obviously, I found it in Nu Skin. How? You see that traditionally societies and everybody in institutions and organizations will always start teaching us first how to work. We're all taught knowledge and skills and sometimes mindset, but it's still on how to work. I studied management at university, and that also had a module on marketing. But all the marketing concepts that I learned at school was just about doing and applying marketing in a corporate environment. It was all about doing marketing for some product or some brand that's already out there. Nobody teach me how to start up from zero and have marketing skills that could help me create and run a business venture. So everybody out there just teach us how to work. And when that didn't seem to work, the self-help industry was born. I do apologize if there's any trainer in the room. The self-help, which is great. The self-help industry is great, but the self-help industry and the success theories industry, we had a boom in Vietnam in the past 5 years of all these courses try and teach us how to get rich. The millionaire mindset. They all teach us how to get rich. But the most important thing that everybody forgets to teach us was how to actually lead our lives properly. Nobody talked about it. Nuskin talked about it. The success formula of the company starts with dream. And I'm always a little scared when people ask me about dreams, because ever since I was born, I had no dreams. It's true until now. I have visions, I have goals, I have purposes. And then one day I realized dreams are just all of those things together with emotions. It's just all of those things with emotions, with inspirations that keep us up at night and wakes us up in the morning. So dream, and then we have set goal. And that's the company teaching us to be responsible about our passion. If you follow your passion but you don't have a clear destination, you will never get there. And then we have belief, and that's the company teaching us to not be fearful, or to be fearful but to go ahead anyway, because better answers are always out there, outside of our comfort zone. Then the company asks us to take action, and I think that's the biggest lesson of all. One of my favorite quotes recently is, ideas are overrated because execution is everything. Because without execution, no ideas becomes reality. And that's take action, massive action. And most importantly, not just acting on our interests, but acting for others' interests before ours, and that's lead. So, for the longest time ever, Nuskin has been teaching us how to lead our lives in the most meaningful way, so that we find meaning, we find our place in life, and we find our purpose in life. And with that, the three triangles that I share with you are the three fundamental truths about the business that has always kept us fixed, anchored, and very committed to the Nuskin journey that we've chosen. Because there is no vehicle out there that could help us break through these limits and could help us lead our life in a meaningful way. That's all for my sharing today. Thank you so much.